Well, first of all, we'll have to see exactly what President Trump and the administration decide to do. Um, the immediate impact is that presumably the State Department will now go ahead and name several individuals um, who are, according to the United States, complicit in implementing or the development of this law. And then the secondary effect of that is that eventually, again, in consultation with the Treasury Department and other parts of the government, banks that are involved in servicing those individuals could be subject to secondary sanctions.
Yes, so obviously the US is seeking to punish those entities that enable Beijing to impose those security laws on the city.
Yes, that's right. And, this could be quite wide-ranging depending on who's involved. It's not clear who those individuals will be yet, but presumably they could be fairly high-ranking members of the Hong Kong government or, the Chinese government responsible for Hong Kong policy. And many of those individuals presumably are in fact doing business with major Chinese banks. So certainly businesses are worried that Chinese banks could be targeted by these sanctions.
And as far as the ending of that special economic status is concerned, some international firms have already indicated they may leave Hong Kong. Are any following through with that?
It's hard to say yet. I think the extent of the law was even broader than many had anticipated. And as you probably know, certain provisions of it say that acts outside Hong Kong will also be covered under the law. So presumably a business executive who said something that was perceived as hostile to China or subverting Chinese state power in some way, in theory, if he then arrived in Hong Kong, he could be liable for those acts. So you can foresee a situation, for example, where a Western company, was in a commercial dispute with China, and if its executives were to arrive in Hong Kong, they could potentially become pawns in that commercial dispute. So, if you look at the most recent AmCham survey, for example, you have about 60% of companies are not actively making plans to leave, but that still leaves 40% that are at least considering the possibility that they should. And you may have seen the news today as well on the New York Times planning to move some of its journalists, or at least some editorial positions, out of the city. So you're already seeing an impact in the media industry. And I think, if you're an executive who's thinking about whether you want to move to Asia, you're going to have to consider the fact now that if you moved here and, for example, one of your children became involved in anti-government protests or something, they could potentially be liable under the law. And so I think that's going to have a potential chilling effect on the decisions of business people as they decide where they want to be.
Nathaniel Taplin, thanks for joining us from Hong Kong.
Sure.